Imagine this for a second. The most dominant force in modern boxing, a woman widely labeled the GWOT, suddenly finds herself dragged into one of the messiest hip-hop controversies of the decade. Not because of anything inside the ring, but because of what's allegedly happening behind the scenes. Now picture this: a legacy built on discipline, grit, and global respect, potentially crumbling under the weight of rumors involving betrayal, secrecy, and a hidden relationship that's now exploded into public view. And the spark that lit the entire fire? Remy Ma. No slow rollout. No warning. Just accusations, alleged receipts, and a narrative sharp enough to cut through the internet in seconds. According to what's been circulating, Remy didn't just throw shade. She dropped a full-on detonation. Claims that Claressa Shields was involved with Papoose. Not casually, not harmlessly, but in a way that flips the entire image of loyalty that fans have believed in for years. Because let's be real, Papoose wasn't just any name in this situation. He was the example, the loyal husband, the ride-or-die partner who stood beside Remy Ma through prison, public scrutiny, and everything in between. Their relationship was marketed as unbreakable, untouchable, and now, that image is being ripped apart piece by piece. What started as whispers quickly escalated into a full-blown spectacle. Allegations that Claressa wasn't just involved, but that she was using Papoose. That this wasn't romance but strategy. That behind the motivational posts and championship belts was a completely different story. And once those claims hit the internet, everything spiraled. Fans were split instantly. Some refused to believe it. Others said it made too much sense, pointing to old rumors, subtle moments, social media behavior that suddenly looked suspicious in hindsight. Because that's how these situations work. Once the narrative shifts, everything from the past gets reinterpreted. Then came the so-called receipts. Screenshots, alleged messages, claims of late-night calls, conversations hinting at manipulation, clout chasing, even financial benefits. None of it fully verified, but in today's digital world, that almost doesn't matter. Perception moves faster than proof, and perception had already chosen a side. According to the narrative being pushed, Claressa wasn't emotionally invested, she was strategically involved. Papoose wasn't a partner, he was an asset. A name, a connection, a stepping stone. If true, that's not just messy, that's brutal. Because it doesn't just damage reputations, it humiliates. And humiliation spreads faster than facts ever could. Social media turned it into a spectacle overnight. Memes flooded timelines. Clips resurfaced. Old interviews were reanalyzed with new context. People who once praised Papoose for loyalty were now mocking him for it. That shift? It's one of the harshest things the internet does. It builds you up, then flips the narrative and watches you fall. Meanwhile, Claressa's image started taking hits from every direction. Not just from fans, but from industry whispers. Reports, unconfirmed but loud, claiming brand deals were being reconsidered. That sponsors didn't want to be tied to controversy. That boxing, a sport built on discipline and respect, doesn't tolerate distractions like this. Whether those claims are real or not, the damage comes from the idea alone. Because once doubt enters the conversation, it spreads. And then there's Papoose. His silence became one of the biggest talking points of all. No statements. No denials. No defense. Nothing. And in scandals like this, silence doesn't stay neutral. People interpret it. Some saw it as pain. Others saw it as confirmation. Some believed he was strategizing behind the scenes. Others thought he was simply overwhelmed. But almost everyone agreed on one thing. The silence made everything louder. Because if none of it were true, wouldn't there be a response? That question alone kept the narrative alive. Meanwhile, Remy Ma didn't step back. If anything, she leaned in harder, posting cryptic messages, dropping lines that felt targeted without naming names, letting the internet connect the dots. And the internet loves connecting dots, even when those dots aren't real. That's how the story evolved from a possible relationship into something much bigger. Now, it wasn't just about cheating rumors. It became a story about manipulation, about power, about someone allegedly using loyalty as a weakness. And once that angle took hold, it changed everything. Because people don't just react to betrayal, they react even stronger to the idea of someone being played. More alleged leaks surfaced. Stories from sources. Claims about secret meetups, hidden interactions, and behind-the-scenes behavior that painted an even darker picture. Were they verified? No. Did that stop them from spreading? Not even close. Because in today's culture, viral content doesn't wait for confirmation. It moves on emotion, on shock value, on how compelling the story feels. And this story? It had everything. Love, loyalty, betrayal, fame, power. It was built to explode. At the same time, the financial angle started creeping in. Claims that money was involved, that support had been given, that deals were tied to relationships. Again unproven. But once money enters the narrative, it raises the stakes instantly. Now it's not just personal, it's strategic. And that makes people pay even more attention. As the days passed, the pressure only grew. Fans demanded answers. Media outlets started circling. Even people outside boxing and hip-hop began weighing in. That's when you know a story has gone beyond its original space. It becomes cultural. And through all of it, Claressa remained mostly quiet, posting vague messages, avoiding direct confrontation, staying away from clear statements that could either confirm or shut everything down. But here's the harsh truth about public scandals. Silence doesn't stop them. It feeds them. Because when there's no clear version of events, the loudest narrative wins. And right now, that narrative isn't in her control. Then came what many called the final blow. Alleged audio clips and messages that seemed to support the claims. A voice that sounded like Claressa. Words that suggested manipulation. Real or fake, it didn't matter anymore. The internet had already decided how to interpret it. That's the moment when scandals stop being about truth and start being about belief. By that point, the damage was everywhere. Fans divided, reputation questioned, business opportunities rumored to be disappearing, and a career that once stood on dominance now being overshadowed by controversy. Papoos's image? Also shattered. Not because of something he confirmed, but because of how the story framed him. From loyal king to man who got played. That shift alone is devastating. And Remy Ma? She emerged as the central voice of the situation. Whether people believed her or not, she controlled the narrative. She set the tone. She drove the conversation. And in the world of public drama, control of the narrative is everything. Because once you control the story, you influence how people see everyone involved. At the end of it all, one question still hangs in the air. How much of this is actually real? Were there genuine receipts? Or was this a calculated move, blending truth and speculation so effectively that no one can separate them? That's what makes this situation so powerful. It doesn't need clear answers to have real consequences. Because the consequences are already happening. Reputations are shifting. Perceptions are changing. Legacies are being questioned. And in the court of public opinion, that's often more impactful than facts. So now it comes down to what happens next. Does Papoose finally speak and reshape the narrative? Does Claressa step forward with her side and attempt to reclaim control? Or does silence continue to let the story write itself? Because one thing is certain, this isn't just a moment. It's a turning point. And depending on what happens next, it could either fade away or become the defining controversy attached to all three names involved. Now the conversation shifts to you. Do you think this was a real exposure backed by truth? Or a strategic takedown designed to dominate the narrative? And if you were in their position, would you stay silent or fight back? Because in situations like this, doing nothing is still a decision. And sometimes it's the one that speaks the loudest.